Alright, this is my top 10 list of my favorite horror movies of all time. Now, little disclaimer, this is my favorite horror movies. I'm not saying these are the best horror movies in the world. You might have a different opinion on that. You might not like some of these. You might love some of these. But for the horror movies that I've seen and the ones that I've, that have been a part of my childhood, this is the top 10 that I personally enjoy.
10.
Coming in at number 10, we have Night of the Comet. Night of the Comet came out in 1984, is rated PG-13, and lasts for 1 hour and 35 minutes. For those of you who haven't seen this movie, spoilers. There's going to be spoilers on all of these. But anyway, so Night of the Comet is a movie about this comet that is going to be passing over Earth, and everybody, is going to watch it. It's a spectacle. You follow these two characters. They're sisters. You follow them basically throughout this entire thing. The comet passes over Earth, and people who were outside watching the comet are evaporated, basically. Their bodies, I guess they burnt up. I'm not exactly sure how it happened or what exactly the physics involved in that was, but they basically turned into dust, and people who were in partial exposure to the comet turn into essentially zombies in a way. People who were not outside at all during this event, they're unharmed. So basically it's their story, them discovering the comet's effect, them discovering all of these like zombies, and then it's just a pretty good movie. So I mean, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you watch it.
9.
Alright, coming in at number 9, we have The Devil's Rejects. The Devil's Rejects came out in 2005. It is rated R, and it lasts for 1 hour and 47 minutes. This is a Rob Zombie film, coming off the success of House of a Thousand Corpses. I didn't much care for House of a Thousand Corpses. I felt like it was too much, it was just too much. There was so much going on. It was kind of hard for me to follow. Devil's Rejects comes in swinging for the fences, and it's great. You follow the three characters that you follow from this film. They are, I'm pretty sure they're family. It's pretty obvious that they're family. You follow them, and they go to a motel, and they basically hold a family hostage, and they are pretty sick individuals. It's got great style. It's got great filming, like shots and everything are pretty well done. The story is good to watch. You follow also a sheriff who is out for blood as he hunts down these three family members and anyone that's associated with them, and tries to kill them. So Devil's Rejects, there's not a whole lot to say about it. It's one of those movies where I feel like you have to just see. It's quite disturbing in the aspect of what you're watching could potentially really happen. So my favorite character from that is Captain Spaulding, so anybody that knows that knows who he is. It's a great movie.
8.
Coming in at number 8, we have Return of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead came out in 1985, is rated R, and lasts for 1 hour and 31 minutes. Return of the Living Dead, for me, I saw it when I was younger. I saw it when I was a kid. It is a horror movie, but it's more of a, it takes kind of a, not relaxed, but it's its own breed, I would say. Obviously, it is coming off of successes like Night of the Living Dead. You follow a lot of characters actually in this. There's quite a few characters, but basically what happens is there are these two guys who are working in a storage facility, And in the basement, there are these government containers that contain bodies from the Night of the Living Dead. In this movie, Night of the Living Dead was an event that took place. It's based on a true story, and the bodies are kept in this warehouse, these government containers. Well, they go down and look at them. One guy's showing the other guy. He's like, hey, I got these containers down here. You know, they got the bodies in it. I'm going to prove it to you. So he shows them. He smacks the side of the container, and the container leaks out this chemical that incapacitates them. They wake up, and throughout the movie, they slowly start to turn into zombies. The zombie virus, I guess is what you could call it, gets out, gets into the atmosphere. The rain forces it back down in a cemetery, and then all the dead start to rise. And it is such a great movie. The makeup's pretty good. The story's pretty good. It's very fast-paced. As soon as everything starts happening, it's very fast-paced, and it's just one after another after another. And it has some of the most horrifying zombies in zombie movies that I've seen. They can talk, and they basically eat brains in order for the pain of being dead to stop. So, you know, they're not exactly mindless in a way, but it is, you can't really kill them. There's no real way to kill them. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out.
7.
Okay, coming in at number 7, we have Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch came out in 1982, is rated R, and lasts for 1 hour and 38 minutes. This is probably my favorite of the Halloween franchise, and it's the one that's different from all of them. A lot of people hated Halloween 3 Season of the Witch because you had Halloween 1 and 2, which followed Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, and it was their story, and at the end of Halloween 2, spoiler alerts, they die. That's why the third one has nothing to do with it. It's basically, you know, they wanted to basically make every Halloween movie after that be a different story, and I like that. I like that, you know, they had 1 and 2, which was Michael Myers, and then 3 was Season of the Witch. Season of the Witch essentially is you follow a police officer. I'm pretty sure he's a detective, and there's this corporation, the Silver Shamrock Corporation. There's mind control, there's robots, there's Halloween masks that, you know, basically, I don't know exactly what it does. I mean, I know what it does, but I don't really know how to describe it or explain it. It basically melts your brains and I don't know, and causes bugs and snakes and stuff to come out of your orifices. It is insane. It is absolutely insane. There's one scene in there that is probably the most, like, out of all of these, I would say it's probably the most disturbing scene that I've seen in any of these movies. And for those of you who don't know, I'm not going to really describe most of it, but it involves a kid wearing one of those Halloween masks and the aforementioned effects taking effect on him, and it is incredibly disturbing. They really weren't holding anything back with this one. They're like, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna make this, and we're gonna make it good. I like it for what it is. I wasn't disappointed when it didn't have anything to do with Michael Myers. After that, initially the film did so poorly that they said, okay, well, we're gonna go back to Michael Myers now because that's our bread and butter. But I feel like it still holds up, and it stands on its own, and I really enjoy it.
6.
Okay, coming in at number 6, we have The Evil Dead. Evil Dead came out in 1981, is actually rated NC-17, and runs for 1 hour and 25 minutes. NC-17, for those of you who don't know, means you cannot see the film. When it came out, you could not see the film unless you were 17 years or older. It was basically a rating that was given to movies that were up there. Let's just say that it was up there. Evil Dead, you follow some friends. They go to this cabin in the woods, and in this cabin they find a book called the Necronomicon. In that, they end up playing a tape recording of the passages of the book being read, and that resurrects and summons demons into their world. Slowly, the characters start to become possessed, and essentially it boils down to the main character of all these franchises, Ash Williams, played by Bruce Campbell, who has to basically fight them off, and he has to, dismember them, and he has to, survive and protect himself. It was between this one and the second Evil Dead movie. I feel like the second Evil Dead movie is essentially where his character comes into his own, and actually you start to mold the Ash Williams that we know in future iterations of it. But the first one is kind of like, he's not necessarily a badass in the first one. He's a scared guy who is literally just trying to stay alive, and for that reason, I enjoy it. So check it out.
5.
Coming in at number 5, we have The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys came out in 1987, is rated R, and runs for 1 hour and 37 minutes. I enjoy this movie so much because it's vampires, and vampires are fun, but it's not that typical, it's not the typical vampire movies that you normally see. The newer ones being, all action, guns blazing, like Blade, and then you have the older ones, which is just like, one main vampire kind of lurks around and he's all dark and everything. You follow this family who moves to, I'm pretty sure it's Santa Monica. They move to this new place, and it is basically there's vampires running around. The vampires, they recruit the oldest son of this family, and he's slowly throughout the movie changing into a vampire. And then the youngest son, or I guess the other brother, who's the youngest, he goes and finds help from the Frog Brothers. The characters in this are the Corys, Corey Feldman and Corey Haim. They are vampire hunters, and they know about the vampires, and basically they team up to fight the vampires and try to kill the head vampire. It's a great movie. The soundtrack's pretty good, so I highly recommend you check it out.
4.
All right, coming in at number 4, we have 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later came out in 2002, is rated R, and lasts for 1 hour and 53 minutes. I have a lot to say about 28 Days Later. First and foremost, I don't care what the director says, I don't care what anybody else says, this is not a zombie movie in the typical sense of what modern zombies are. They are reanimated corpses that basically just feed. And in this sense, it is not a zombie movie. I guess, you can say it's a zombie movie if you're talking about zombies from like White Zombie, how they're just mindless and they just do, whatever they do. But it's more than that. And I feel like to just say it's a zombie movie is completely just slapping it in the face for what it really is. It's a movie about a virus that it's essentially, if we're going to boil it down, to like basically an advanced form of rabies that can transmit between humans and other animals and stuff like that. It starts out in this laboratory where there's all these chimpanzees and all this animal testing that's going on. This animal rights activist group breaks in to try and to free all of the animals that are in there. Once inside, they are confronted by one of the scientists who's there, who's begging and pleading them not to open the cages because the chimps are infected. They're all like, what are they infected with? And he simply says, rage. This doesn't deter them. They cut the locks, they open one up, and the chimpanzee attacks a woman. She is bitten, and the virus is immediately transmitted, and it works rapidly and very horrifying ways. I actually had nightmares about this movie. I saw it when I was a kid. I had nightmares about this movie. Every time I would go to sleep, this scene would replay in my head when she gets attacked by the chimp, and then the guy goes over to basically find out if she's okay. She turns around, her eyes with her red eyes, and throws up blood in his face. Now, The virus can be transmitted by bites or like blood, anything like that that's infected getting into contact with you, into any open orifices or anything like that, and then you will contract it. It happens extremely rapidly, and it is very scary because I feel like something like this could potentially happen. Maybe not to this degree, but if for some reason rabies was just like, yo, we're airborne, it might be interesting. So you follow survivors of this. The main character is a guy named Jim. He wakes up in the hospital, and the hospital's completely deserted. He comes out of the hospital, and the town is completely deserted. There's remains of where people have been. It looks like an evacuation occurred. He's having trouble. He can't find anybody. He goes and he finds this church. He goes into the church. Now, this is a very scary scene, I think, in the movie, because he goes into this church, and there's tons of people in there that are presumed dead, because they all flocked to the church for religious reasons when this was all happening, and it's presumed that the majority of them are dead. He then says hello, and one of the infected just stands up and turns and stares at him with this fucking just terrifying look. And I swear, like, if that happened to me, I would shit myself out the window and into the stratosphere. Like, it is insane. So he goes running out of there. They're chasing him, and then he meets up with these two other individuals who are survivors as well. They they team up. Some lives are lost. Eventually they find this father and daughter, and they all agree to go to this military base, which is broadcasting a signal basically saying, hey, we're survivors, we have the answer to the infection, so come here. And they go there to find, to seek refuge and help. Come to find out that the soldiers are not good people, and they fight back. It's a good movie. I feel like it's very well done. The music is great, and the visuals are fantastic, and it is genuinely horrifying when you watch it. So I highly recommend you check it out.
3.
Coming in at number 3, this was a difficult one to do because I felt like it was just really hard to do. So we have Night, Dawn, and Day of the Dead. Now, I know that's probably like, oh man, you should have just chose one, but number 3, I feel like the 3 films, they are one cohesive film. So that's why I didn't choose one individually. If you watch Dawn, and then you watch Night, Night leads into Dawn, Dawn leads into Day, okay? That's why I couldn't just pick one. Night of the Living Dead. The one that I'm choosing is the 1990 version of it. It came out in 1990, is rated R, runs for an hour and 32 minutes. Day of the Dead came out in 1978, is rated R, and runs for 2 hours and 7 minutes. And then you have, sorry, that was Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is 1978, rated R, 2 hours and 7 minutes. And then Day of the Dead, which is 1985, rated R, and it goes on for 1 hour and 41 minutes. Now, the reason I choose the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead, I feel like the original is great, but if the original is great, then this one is beyond great. It's fantastic. It's some of Tom Savini's greatest work, and Tom Savini is an absolute legend in the horror makeup world. It's great. It takes what the original did and it modernizes it, and it's just fantastic. Tony Todd as Ben, fantastic. I wouldn't choose it any other way. There's not a whole lot to say about them. They're all 3 movies deal with a zombie outbreak. In Night of the Living Dead, they're held up in a cabin, or not necessarily a cabin, but a farmhouse, and they're having to survive the best way they can with very minimal weapons and equipment that they have. Dawn of the Dead just really cranks up that awesome dial, and it follows people from, essentially, they are not from Night of the Living Dead, but it's a continuation from Night of the Living Dead. So it follows this group of people who basically they hold up in a mall, and inside the mall there's zombies in the mall. I did a video about my hatred towards the remake of Dawn of the Dead. You can check that out on my channel, but basically I do a lot of, I explain why the original one is just far superior to the remake. So I recommend you check that one out. And then you have Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead, it follows a group of people who, military and scientists who are underground trying to find a way to cure this zombie infection. I don't want to say too much about these movies just because there's a lot of substance, there's a lot of, things going on with them. So I highly recommend that you check them out and see for yourself. But Night, Dawn, and Day of the Dead at number 3.
2.
All right, coming in at number 2. So number 2 and number 1, they were, interchanging for me. But number 2 is The Blair Witch Project. Blair Witch Project came out in 1999, is rated R, and lasts for 1 hour and 21 minutes. The reason I love The Blair Witch Project so much is because I feel like it is genuine horror and terror in a way that you can't really explain it. For those of you who haven't seen The Blair Witch Project, please watch it. A lot of people think it's stupid, they think it's boring, but when you actually see it for what it is so realistic and so well done that, it feels like, oh my goodness, this could happen to me. This could happen to me, and that's what brings the genuine horror in, is when it's real. So in the Blair Witch Project, there are 3 student filmmakers who go into the woods to basically make a documentary about the Blair Witch. Man, there's so much going on with it. They go into the woods, they hit these locations where they're trying to film, and then on their way back to their vehicle, they get lost. They get lost in the woods, and they get turned around, and then you're basically following them through the woods and with their encounters with the Blair Witch and all this supernatural stuff that's happening. There's so much to say about it, but I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to really, spoil a whole lot of it. But it's just the fact that it is so realistically made. You're following these people and it looks real. I mean, when this movie first came out, they were pushing the idea that it really happened, that what you were watching was actual footage. A lot of people believed it. A lot of people, they thought, oh my goodness, I'm watching their actual tapes. And to this day, it still leaves me uneasy. Like, just sitting down here in my basement talking about it's just scaring the shit out of me right now. So we're going to go on to number
1.
All right, coming in at number 1, The Creep Show, or Creep Show. Came out in 1982, is rated R, and runs for 2 hours. Creep Show is my favorite horror movie, and mostly because it's not one long movie. It is short films. You follow short films that basically all take place, I'm assuming, within the same universe, but they're so uniquely done. Everything is its own story. What I like about those types of horror movies is it doesn't take that long to get to the good stuff. In horror movies, or movies in general nowadays, it's like when you want to get to the good stuff, you got to watch a lot of the movie. You're building up. There's the payoff, and then it drops back down. With Creep Show, it's get a little bit of story, blows up, comes back down, and it's fast. And that's what I like. I enjoy watching, short, movies, short horror movies. One of the more notable ones for me when I was a kid that scared me was The Crate. The crate is basically, there's this monster in a crate, and they find this crate and it's killing people, and they gotta get rid of it. And it scared me, and it still scares me. It's one of my biggest fears is werewolves are the most horrifying creatures to me, just because the thought and the idea of being mauled to death by something with claws and teeth as it's just basically tearing you apart is fucking horrible. I would much rather be attacked by a vampire that seduces me, sucks my blood, and it's over with quick than to get mauled and ripped apart by a werewolf or bear or anything like that. So that's why the crate monster really scared me as a kid, because it's basically like an ape-like creature, and it's got claws and it's got teeth, and it's just fucking horrifying. So yeah, Creepshow, check it out. You will not be disappointed. Alright, so that's my top 10 list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below if, you enjoy any of these movies, if you agree with my list, if you disagree with my list, what's your top 10 favorite horror movies? I would love to see it. I'd love to, see what you guys got. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.